for today's discussion. My name is Max Armbruster. I'm the founder and CEO of TalkPush, and TalkPush is it's a recruitment software automation platform, and we process over 10 million applications, job applications worldwide, through an application process which is usually free of resume and of email. So that's kind of like the big thing that's different is we help to talk with candidates who are not checking their email every day and who do not necessarily have a resume on them, or if they do have a resume, maybe it's not going to be opening doors for them because they're at early stage of their career where their resume doesn't have that much. So that's who I am. I've been working in recruitment for a long time, recruitment and recruitment technology for as long as I can recall, most of my professional life. And today I'm delighted to be welcoming all of you for today's session and to talk about candidate engagement, and particularly candidate engagement in the high volume space. We're not talking about executive level hiring where you can bring, where you can meet your candidates one by one at a coffee and bring them a box of chocolates. We're talking about building engagement at scale when you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of leads and candidates on a daily basis sometimes. So I'm delighted to be welcoming on the stage Zach, who Ezekiel is the full name, Fernando, who is working with Viventis. And Zach has been in this industry for a long time, has both worked now with Viventis, which is a leader in the RPO and staffing side, but before on the BPO and the BPO industry. I'll let Zach introduce himself. Zach, welcome, and thanks for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you, Max. I know it's been a while since we've had this conversation pre-pandemic, right? But a lot has changed since that time. So my name is Ezekiel Fernando, right? So I've been in the BPO high volume practice, both on the client side and in I would say the business side, as well as the provider side, this time with Viventis for almost 16 years. But the core has always been on two things. Number one, sourcing and obviously recruitment marketing, plus your recruitment operations. So mostly my tenure has revolved around how do we attract candidates from the top of the funnel, and how do we deliver those candidates and put them on the seats, right? Essentially revenue, and how that goes back to the cycle and how we predict those cycles to be, I would say, the ideal candidate cycle that we would have across the recruitment stages, across the recruitment funnel. So thanks, Max, and happy to be here and be speaking to everyone.
Yeah, thanks. You were alluding to some of the changes in the industry, and how what a good candidate experience or engagement meant in the past is not really the same as today. There's changing expectations from our talent pool. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how to get ahead of the competition on engagement. But before we go there, maybe spend a little bit more time on Viventis. What services do you provide for those who don't know on the call?
Yeah, so thank you. So Viventis is a prime, I would say, one of the best recruitment firms that we have in Asia, right? We're a leader.
We'll take your word for
RPO. We're a leader in the RPO space in the Philippines, right? And I think one of the key successes that we've had recently is to provide an end-to-end RPO solution for a US healthcare startup, where with the use of TalkPush, right, we're able to leverage upon the CRM of TalkPush to scale this startup from 0 to 500 seats in 2 months and growing.
Okay, that's a nice product plugin. I should let the audience know that indeed Viventis is a customer of TalkPush, but we'll be talking in general terms on how the candidate engagement can be improved. So going back to changing expectations, how are you boosting candidate engagement today compared to pre-pandemic?
Yeah, so I kept on talking about this, especially with, Max, the first iteration of TalkPush then, right? Where you guys had a product that recorded candidates' voice messages and somebody would listen to it, or a recruiter would listen to it and vet that candidate, right? We've obviously accelerated from that initial product to where it is now as a powerful CRM with the use of chatbots, with the use of AI, etc. And with the onset of the pandemic, and I've been talking about this in several occasions, that if there's one thing that has accelerated the use of technology, it's the pandemic, right? And it is here to stay. And those changes have been influential both in the candidate behavior and how we process candidates and how the candidates apply to jobs, right? Now, on the side of the candidates, they can apply to 5, 10, 15 jobs in less than an hour these days, compared to before where they have to walk in and essentially go from one location to another, one floor to another, right? So that piece of engagement, if you're unable to solve a solution for that gap, if we're not creative enough to put in workflows around it, there is a huge risk for companies to start engaging and start articulating the employee value proposition, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's...
So sorry to interrupt, but I just want to frame your comments on what it means, like, for operationally. You were talking about a day when, not so long ago, most of the candidates would be physically coming to the office, and so they would have time to see maybe one, maybe 2 employers a day, right?
Correct.
And so the focus on engagement must have been, I mean, I remember it was all about, like, let's bring them in and then we'll take care of it, basically. And then it's like once they're in the door, mission accomplished. The rest is just like a factory line. And now with like 5 or 10 applications in an hour, so I guess you can't bring them in anymore. So how do you hook them?
So and there's going to be a plug again, right? Because of the workflows that we can customize with the use of TalkPush. At the point of application, at the point of submission of application, we're able to engage with them, right? That's the first touch point, via SMS, via email, and we can be creative around those potential gaps, right? So the moment they submit their application, an SMS pops out saying, "Hey, you are shortlisted. Hey, thank you for your application." And that creates the first contact, right? The first impression that really matters to these candidates. It has become an instantaneous, I would say, approach to engage with the candidates once they are able to submit their applications. And that's what we've done. And I think that point of engagement is very critical, especially with how the churn is, or how we're experiencing the churn in the BPO industry, right? So with that alone, we're able to reach out to candidates faster and with a deliberate and intentional way that we want them towards the next step, which could be an examination, an interview, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. The end-to-end process from the initial click to a candidate getting a job offer. I've read some studies that says that it's gradually shortening the time to hire, the time to process. Have you seen this at Viventus as well across your clients, that there's that time is shortening, or yeah? What does it look like on the field for you guys?
Yeah. So we support at any given time 8 to 9 clients within the BPO industry, supporting different industries, right? And with our ability to scale and move candidates from one segment of demand to another and create workflows around whether or not they're qualified for these segments, we're able to qualify candidates and saturate candidates faster with the use of TalkPush. And that talks about our ability to shorten the recruitment time and endorse to a particular client. And that's because we've wrapped around, processes or efficiency, or I would say engagement focus on each of these touch points. So the first touch point would be your initial submission, right? Second would be if they qualify, if they get shortlisted for a priority account, they get endorsed a priority account. If they do not make it, we now move them to the next and recycle these candidates to the next priority account, and so on and so forth.
So it sounds like it's not so much like a fixed number, like you have to wrap it up within 24 hours. It's more the frequency of the touch points and making sure that not too much time goes by where you're not engaging with them. But I guess that's also the nature of your business, which is you have 20 accounts. So you can maybe I don't know what's it like for the candidates, whether they apply to Viventus and then you can distribute them across different accounts, or if it's account by account.
Yeah, so they can apply in Viventus and they can get up to 8 opportunities in one application, right? And I think that's applicable also to most BPOs where they have a priority account. For example, the minimum hire requirement for a premium account, right, would be college graduates, 3 years BPO experience, can work on site. And if they don't make it there for that priority account, they get prioritized to the next premium account, and so on and so forth. And I think that's where you shorten the recruitment process. Instead of them being interviewed face-to-face by different ops leaders or by different operations leads until they get exhausted for 8 hours on site, right? And no need for that. And not saying no need for that, but at least we're able to filter based on 2 things: their hiring or their skill set, and 2, their intent, right?
Their intent. Okay. I noticed you said intent and not sort of culture fit. That gets a lot of buzz and a lot of literature written on this topic, where companies are trying to differentiate themselves on culture and increase retention that way. You use the word intent, so please expand on that. What do you mean with that, and how does it tie into culture fit? And I'm curious to know if you've seen some customers who are particularly tight on culture fit, and to illustrate that.
Yeah, I have seen, right, the current I would say client that we are heavily working on is very particular with culture, values, etc. And we work with them to identify these cultural values. And we also use those specific cultural, I would say, key points for us to ask the candidates at the onset that if, number 1, right, their willingness to work on site. Because right now, the buzzword on hybrid, the buzzword on work from home is here to stay, right? So when we ask them if they're willing to work on site because it's a healthcare account, right, and the demand is for them to work on site from training to production, then we're able to capture the intent to work on site immediately, right? And that is tied up with a culture. That is tied up with the demands of the client.
Yeah.
And then if we're unable to process them, right, if they do not make it to that particular stage because they said, no, we're not willing to work on site, right? That's the time when the recruiter intervention comes in, where they get called to validate that intent. And then if they do not move, because again, they say no, we move them to another account. Essentially, we do not lose those touch points because we know what the client needs from us, right? Or what the client would demand from us as far as minimum hiring requirements is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, we're able to save time because 96%, and this is an accurate number, 96% of those that would say no, I'm not willing to work on site, would really not be willing to work on site. And that's a validation that I think we're able to only capture because we have deployed that at the onset, meaning at the point of application.
Talking about the demand for people to come and spend time on site, like healthcare. First, for people like me who don't understand those intricacies, why is it important for a healthcare account for the person to be in office rather than working from home? That's a side question, but the main question I want to ask is, in order to, what is the percentage of people in the Philippines today in the BPO sector? And this is going to be an estimate, I'm sure, but the percentage of people who get a job offer without meeting face to face. Like, I'm sure it's a lot more than 2 or 3 years ago. And I was just meeting a BPO in Latin America last week, and they said it's 100% for them. 100% of hiring is happening remote, but then they do come to the office on day one on the job. So does that resemble the situation in the Philippines, in Asia?
I would think so, right? It would be at the low of 85, 90% job offers happening virtually. I would even peg it at 95%, at a very high number. I, for one, right, is a product of that. And I'm sure when you talk about volume hiring, you talk about scale, then it could be happening at a more prevalent scale, at a higher number rather.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, but before I do that, I just want to remind the audience we're gonna spend another 5-10 minutes with Zach, and so if you want to ask questions, I see we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Please feel free to hit us with questions about Viventis, not just TalkPush. Although Zach, maybe you'll help me answer those, and then we'll do a little product demo at the end. So please hang on for that. So yeah, a few more questions about that. So, what are some tools or techniques that you use in order to reduce the chance of somebody ghosting you from the moment you make a job offer to the first day on the job? What are some techniques that you implement at Viventis to make sure that people don't flake out? I mean, I don't know if that's a real problem, but I've heard about this problem. I don't know if it's a problem at all anymore this day and age.
It is a problem, Max, and I'm not sure if June was here, right? And some of our TA experts also. But we've seen off day one onboarding fall out by at least 15-20%. And again, ghosting is a key item, right? I just have, in doing so, we have used, and again, shameless plug, we have used TalkPush as a pre-engagement or pre-onboarding engagement tool, right? For us to be able to wrap around and solution for that process gap. And when I say solution that process gap, once they sign the job offer, they get a note saying that, hey, your onboarding requirements or your onboarding schedule is on this day. Make sure to attend this. And we then deploy Zoom webinars, right, for Q&As, just to pre-engage them once they sign up on TalkPush and say that, hey, I'm willing to attend your pre-engagement onboarding session. And so simple Q&As, introduction of the company that we're supporting, etc. And then before day one, we again deploy a set of reminders, right? Saying that, hey, we're looking forward to meeting you on day one. Here's the checklist of what you need to do. Here's your trainer. Here's the floor where you're going to, etc. So all of those.
I'm imagining this, Zach. Sorry, to get into the details of this operation. I'm imagining this as you've got a class of 50 people starting next week, and they've already agreed and so on. And you say, okay, we're gonna everybody log in on Friday at noon. We're gonna get to know each other, talk about the webinar. I would imagine an ideal Zoom size would be 10 or 20 people so that people can interact a little bit. I don't know. Tell me how close I am to reality.
Yeah, so we hold these Zoom pre-engagement or pre-onboarding sessions for 3 sessions a day with 20, 30 audience, right, or agents in that room, right? And we've seen the increase from the one that I declared earlier as 20% drop off to 14% to 11% in those 3 batches that we have seen, right? So that alone saved us cost on sourcing, saved us cost on onboarding, saved us cost on recruiting, and essentially put more warm bodies on day one.
Okay, great. All right, I'll ask one more question before turning to the audience for more questions, which is what are the screening methods that you can use to determine if somebody is going to be an effective work from home agent? What are some of the lessons? Because at the beginning, everybody was raising their hand. Oh, I'll be great at working from home. Everybody can do it. But then we've seen after a year or 2 years into the pandemic that there were drop-offs, there were burnouts, there were people quitting, the great resignation, just the mental fatigue of working from home eventually caught up with a lot of people. So taking these learnings from the last 2 years, have you adjusted your recruiting process in order to avoid these kinds of situations happening?
We have, right? And we have changed that very quickly because of, again, the hybrid environment. So there are 2 things that we've done. We've opened up our site here in EDSA Shangri-La to accept walk-in candidates also. And again, we talk about intent max. Those that we see as people walking in on site have a higher intent to join an on-site environment or hybrid working environment versus those that are applying virtually. Right. So our drop-offs from those people who are applying on-site is 15% lower compared to those that are applying virtually because of the stickiness factor that we're able to do job offers on-site already and align expectations already.
Makes sense. Okay. So offering them that option and giving them the option to come on site. Some people will prefer it and like to come back. And for those who are doing it remotely, are there certain questions you can ask them to make sure that they're going to be okay with the remote environment?
We do. In fact, one client that we are supporting requested us to put out, or at least we have volunteered to put out how noisy your background noise is.
Measure the sound,
again,
sound distraction. Yeah.
So I've seen one client also ask for the bandwidth, but I've seen also another client say, do you have, or how confident are you with the background noise of, those roosters greeting you in the background, right? Or kids being, So those are the questions, some knockout questions that if they say, there's a loud background noise, then the next step then is to invite them on site, right? And again, measure intent from there and really put out that qualifier later on.
I would think that customers should pay a premium in order to get the rooster in the background. It's such a nice touch. It brings the customer in a different headspace where they're not worried about their modem. They're just thinking, maybe I need to spend more time in the countryside. Maybe you could sell it as a premium. Okay. On a more serious note, it's a question from the audience. How effective is your social media marketing when it comes to sourcing candidates versus traditional job aggregators or job boards? So that's yeah, that's a good one. So Facebook, Instagram, JobStreet, Indeed, what's hot and what's not?
I would still put my money on Meta. So
No.
Facebook, yeah, Facebook, IG, right? And those two, right? And the reason being is that the I would say the space, the share of eyes for these two apps would trump any other advertising space out there, at least for volume hiring.
It's a factor of like 20 or 30 to 1 in terms of monthly active users logging into JobStreet versus Meta. It's not even close. I would say that I support your comments. I mean, our customers across the board say that's the best performing channel for them. One factor that can make this channel very expensive, meaning Meta and social media, is the amount of time it takes to process the leads, because the quality of leads is obviously not as high as JobStreet. So you have a lot of volume, and not every lead is going to be an active job seeker with the proper professional credentials. So it can become very expensive, right, to process all of that if you're using traditional methods. So that's the hidden cost of social media marketing if you don't know how to automate the incoming traffic. June, he's asking a question, but I mean, we should give him the mic, because I know he can answer it himself. But I'll ask, maybe Zach, you want to take this one? How do you humanize an automated engagement to feel candidates are not treated as commodity and are talking to a bot? How do we make the bot more warm and fuzzy?
I think, Max, that's an answer for you.
Okay, I'll take it. Sure. Well, I mean, first, you want to capture the first name of the candidate. Hello, Zach. Hi, Zach. Thank you, Zach, etc. That's a lot better. It's a nice little touch. So having a personalized engagement with the use of tokens, where when you capture the information from the candidate, you capture their name, their phone number, and so on, so you can personalize the answer. Secondly, I would say, especially on Messenger, Facebook Messenger and Instagram and WhatsApp, you have a bot that can do a lot more than text only. You can add images, GIFs, videos, and emojis, all kinds of things to make the experience seem less like a boring old form and a little bit more fun and playful. I think those are the two big things. But of course, the high touch part of the hiring experience, where you're spending time with a candidate, that has to come in as fast as possible. So the best way to have an engaged, a high touch experience with candidates is to make sure that the leads that you pass on to the final interview to the recruiters are already pre-qualified. Because if a recruiter is given a list of leads with a conversion rate of lead to hire ratio around 5%, they're not going to be very engaging, because 19 times out of 20, they're going to have to say no to the candidates. So that's very depressing and disengaging for the recruiter. If the recruiter knows this guy is good, pre-qualified, is okay with the hours, the pay rate, et cetera, then they're going to be on the phone or meeting this candidate with the intent to hire, as much as possible, more than half the time. So that'll be a much nicer experience for both the recruiter and the candidate. They can give their top performance, and as a recruiter, it's much more fun to offer a job than to offer a rejection. Yeah, anything you want to add on that, Zach?
Yeah, so I think to your point, Max, right? So the lower that you, or the deeper that you get to the funnel, the intensity of the engagement should be higher from the side of the humans, right? As you filter out, or as you go up, or as you go down to the bottom of the funnel, that's the time that we should be spending more time with the candidates versus the initial stages, the initial pre-screening stages where we're able to weed out, high intent, mid intent, and low intent candidates. So essentially what we want to do is to really weed out low intent candidates, those who just answer 2 or 3 questions from the bot, right? And maybe prioritize that as second priority. And then as you go down the funnel, that's where your hiring manager interviews or recruiter interviews, final interviews, the intensity upon which we can leverage on the bot, right, to communicate, remind, and at the same time engage the candidate should be 2 or 3 times higher than the first one. And then as you go down the money in the bag stages, meaning the job offer stages, pre-onboarding stages, we then intensify it by constantly connecting with the candidates via our recruiters, because we don't want to lose these candidates anymore at this stage of the process. And essentially before day 1, your pre-onboarding engagement, right, where more humans via Zoom, right, get to the call and ensure that, hey, we declare 9 out of 10 of these Zoom attendees will show up on day 1.
Yeah, and you were talking about the acceleration of the touch points, like as you get towards the finish line, the frequency and the level of engagement is higher. Not all of that has to be done manually, right? You can set up sequences where if the candidate moves to this stage, then send them one message at that point, another one 12 hours later, another one 10 hours later, and drip feed them with information about what to expect on the job, so that their head is in the right place. They don't get distracted with another job offer, perhaps. Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have for questions. I saw a couple of questions from the audience on whether TalkPush can help non-BPO companies and whether we can help in finance and engineering positions and all that. Absolutely. We work with financial institutions in the Philippines, for example, with the AIA, BPI, Philim, and others. Niche hiring, the more you go niche, I guess, the more you can rely on the resume, and the more you can rely on specialized marketplaces. So they are in the financial sector. You can go to efinancialcareers.com and get some great resumes. And I'm sure you can find a marketplace for architects and a marketplace for, full stack software developers. And the more you go broad, the more you'll have to use automation in order to pre-screen candidates with automated pre-screening methodologies and tools like TalkPush. So I would say we can help any company in a high volume environment. But if you're hiring 1 or 2 jobs, particular niche jobs once a month, the human, we cannot beat a human recruiter. Anything in the low volume side, you're probably better off, going with a human first solution rather than automation first solution. Zach, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and congrats on your rapid ramp up, and hope to see you soon in the flesh. I will be flying to Manila in October, unless they block me for COVID or something.
I'll see you soon, Max. Excited to see you again.
Thank you. Louis,
thanks for
having me. Take over.
Hi, Max. How are you? Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Seek, for all your interventions. I think it were of great content, and thank you, Max, as well. We can move to our next stage of our webinar that is going to talk a little bit about TalkPush. I prepared some slides here for you to see. All right, you should be seeing my screen over here. And well, we're really happy that you're here because we want to talk about how to attract more, how to automate more, and how can we do that to alter the candidate engagement, the candidate experience that is ultimately going to enhance your employer brand. So basically in TalkPush, we do many things and we have many features, but all of those are directed into 3 things. The first one that I'd like to mention is that we help you attract 100 times the volume of applicants. We do this with different strategies, right? We do this by integrating with social media, integrating with job boards. We can integrate with your job events. We can source and help you capture all the leads from your different channels into a powerful CRM and a series of bots that are going to keep the engagement going. That way, you don't get your customers, your applicants waiting for any process. That way, you can attract 100 times the volume of applicants. Afterwards, the second thing that we specialize is automation. In automation, we want you to automate all the mundane, all the repetitive tasks. Why? Because this will enable your team to focus on more valuable tasks, like focusing on retention or candidate experience, things that can really top you to the next level, right? So when we talk about automation, we're talking about the basic stuff that pre-screening with a couple of questions that we can make to our candidates. We are talking about frequently asked questions from applicants about your process that can be answered because they're typically the same. Schedule interviews that it usually takes a bunch of time with each candidate for an interview. All the assessment tests that you can do, English assessment or psychotechnic assessments, all of that part and contact with the applicants can be automated. So we are a tool that can power your automation process and make you more productive and more efficient in every step of the way. The third thing that we focus on is creating an amazing candidate experience. And we do this because we talk in the communication channels, the preferred communication channels of the applicant in emerging markets. Typically, WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram, but we have a bunch of other bots that can talk in different channels. You can always tap into email, you can tap into SMS. And the amazing thing about this is that generally most of our tools are customized, so you can speak in the tone that you prefer. As Max was telling you earlier today, you can talk with GIFs, with emojis, with the tone that your company wants to be represented with. And that's a great part of the process, because if we're going to use bots, we want those bots to be as human and as real as possible to create a candidate experience that is awesome and that can really take something for the candidate. What we want to achieve is that even though a candidate doesn't get a slot, in 6 months, 1 year, it will always think, oh, I had a great experience applying for this job. Maybe I'll consider to do it again. And if I don't do it, I can share it with others because it was an amazing process. They kept me posted every step of the way. I could apply on WhatsApp or on a landing page or on Messenger. And that's real kind of thing that can make a difference. I have a quick video for you that I wanted to show you that talks a little bit more about how we source and how we organize your applicants into our software, right? So basically, are you having problems, let's see, sourcing the right candidates, or maybe problem with the volume that you're receiving? Here's a solution for that. Chris is a typical applicant, all right? This applicant will go through your application funnel that it usually begins with job boards. Then the screening, assessment, interviewing, offering, and at the end, hiring. All of your applicants are going to go through this funnel and get hired into your company. But the real thing about this is that maybe you're losing a bunch of traffic that comes from social media, like Sig commented. So basically what we want to do is, because everybody, yeah, some people are at job boards, but everybody is in social media and you can get them there. TalkPush can help you to get 100 times the volume of leads with social media. That's why TalkPush exists, and it enables you to capture all leads from different channels and social media into your company, merge in a CRM that then our bots are going to pre-screen with your criteria, because you're going to build the questions that you want the candidates to respond at every stage of the process in WhatsApp, Messenger, email, or SMS. Then TalkPush does the real magic, because it will organize all of the applicants and candidates into different folders, right? And the main thing about this is that we want you as a team of recruiters to focus on the most ideal candidates for the position that you're going to fill. But don't worry, you're not going to lose the other volume of candidates that are in the different folders. You can always tap into them with re-engagement campaigns. Why? Because you can send them an email, you can send them a message, if they give you permission, of course, to re-engage with them in different campaigns or different roles that your company has. And that's how TalkPush does it. You can also share a profile with inside or outside the company, schedule interviews automatically, even move from folder to folder the applicants, and an onboarding process. It's like having a super recruiter that will never sleep, will work 24/7, and can talk in every channel. That's what TalkPush does in sourcing and attraction, and that's what we can do for you. Let the talent talk. So basically, that's how we can help you source more candidates. An amazing, cool new feature that we have as well inside of TalkPush, it's TalkScore, that can help you identify fluent English speakers in under 1 minute. You can forget all about the long assessment test in English that lasts 30 minutes, that has low conversion rates and are very difficult to track on. With TalkScore, you can do a pre-screening question that can be answered on a voice note in WhatsApp or Messenger, and then the system will assign a cipher score for that. Imagine you can find out who speaks English fluently before everybody else. While everybody's waiting a couple of weeks or a couple of days to do a long assessment that's going to have low conversion rates, at the beginning of the funnel, you already know the candidates that you want to spend time with because they'll have the English level that you need. Additional to this, we have, with TalkPush, you will always know your numbers. Why? Because we have a big database of information that you can tap into anytime. Hundreds of graphics that talk about the sourcing, about the channels, about the campaigns, the days that they are applying, the hours that they are applying, the countries, every single point of data that you can imagine that you're collecting from your candidates, you're going to be able to see it in our data dashboard. And that will give you time to optimize your whole process, knowing the information from where the candidates being drawn from and why are we rejecting them or how quickly are we onboarding them. Employers who put candidate experience first are powered by TalkPush. I noticed that there are some of you here and we want to personally thank you because it has been a hell of a ride. We're currently in more than 4 continents, in more than 15 countries, learning from 7 different industries. And we're very proud of what we're doing here. So if you're not part of this mix, we invite you. And that's why we have this QR code, because we want to start a conversation with you. Here's my contact. I'm the head of marketing, but we're available across our website to ask for a demo. You can go through this QR code or go to a website that is www.talkpush.com. And then we can schedule a demo in which we can show you all the features that TalkPush has to offer and how can this integrate into your process. All right, so for us, it would be awesome to show you this. If you're already a customer and want a consultancy on anything that we've talked today here about sourcing or automating in social media, you can also reach out to us. We're here to help. And well, thank you very much for joining our webinar. This will be all. And if you have any further questions, you can connect in LinkedIn with Max or with Sik. And well, thank you very much for being here. I will pass the mic back to Max and Sik.
All right. I think that's the end of the call. So again, same thing. Thank you for attending today. And Zach, have you tried this feature that Louis showed you, the new feature where we can evaluate the English of the candidate?
We have, Max. So we're in the process of potentially launching that for Q4. So that's when the real grind for the BPO industry is. So we'll do that.
All right. And just to help you visualize this for the audience, we can ask someone to send some audio or video on Messenger. So they don't even have to leave Facebook. They can send a little bit of audio, and you'll be able to tell if they're a fluent English speaker or average or not suitable. With just 1 or 2 minutes and very high completion rates. So we're excited about that and what it can do to expand the talent pool. Thank you everybody for joining. Have a great Wednesday, great rest of the week, and hope to see you again at one of our webinars. We have those every other week, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Max.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.